Some cameras I try fall under the awesome, but don't buy this category. And this is one of them. You have to be a special type of photographer to enjoy a Sigma camera. Part purist, part masochist, and a whole lot of nerd. At some point in your photography journey, you are going to encounter Sigma cameras and their unique Foveon sensors. And what's confusing about this is you're going to simultaneously hear people rave about how good they are, and also others rant about how bad they are, which is at least what I heard. So naturally, I wanted to get a Foveon sensor camera for myself and see what all the fuss was about. But being me and knowing that I like old used cameras to save some money, I quickly encountered a problem. Sigma cameras are expensive, or rather they just hold their value really well on the used market. Sigma has made a number of Foveon sensor cameras dating back to the early 2000s, and I thought I could get a good deal by picking up one of those older DSLRs. But no, these older Sigma DSLRs are just hard to find. And while their competitors, the other old DSLRs from that same time period, cost around $100, Sigma cameras are at least 2 to 3 times that price. But after waiting a while, being patient, setting up search alerts, all the good practice, I was able to find this one, the Sigma SD10. And what made this a particularly good deal was it came with a bunch of lenses, and I sold the lenses, making this camera pretty much free. This camera is from 2004, and it looks like it's from 1995, if only it was beige, which actually would be pretty cool. Its body is large, clunky, and mine's even more so with the optional battery grip installed. The body is very much inspired from the SA7 and SA9 film SLRs that Sigma produced before it. Not only is it large, it sounds old and clunky. The shutter button, the mirror slap, it sounds awesome. It is so fun to shoot, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It uses Sigma's own SA lens mount, which is somewhat limiting. Sigma is the only company producing lenses for this system, obviously, and the availability and price is a lot worse than, say, the Nikon or Canon variants of exactly the same lenses. Although the flange distance is identical to M42 lens mount, so there's an inexpensive adapter you can add to shoot manual M42 glass, which is very fun. Most importantly, the camera uses that Foveon sensor that we are so interested in. This is the first generation Foveon X3 sensor. They all have funny names, and it caused a lot of hype when it was announced. Foveon was actually its own separate company at the time that came up with these special sensors and made them for Sigma, until Sigma ended up acquiring Foveon, which makes sense. They were pretty much the sole user of these sensors. Although, fun fact, I didn't know this till I researched it, they weren't the only company to use these sensors. By my research, only one other camera manufacturer actually made it to production with the Foveon sensor camera, but there were a few other prototypes. And I'll leave that to you for a little treasure hunt to find out which ones I'm talking about. I'm not going to go deep into Foveon sensors and how they work in this video. There's great articles that are simple to follow that I'll just link in the description. But suffice to say, it works really different with some advantages and trade-offs to normal cameras. But how is it using it in the real world? Look, I just have to be really blunt because I don't want somebody picking up this camera, hoping for this magical, wonderful experience with Foveon colors, and then getting really frustrated. Colors straight out of the camera with both this camera and the SD14 I owned are consistently not what you expect or saw in the real world. This means that instead of using the images as is, or only needing slight tweaks, the colors need a lot of work to get them to look like what you see. Add to that fact that the extra work has to happen in Sigma's own proprietary editing software. Mostly, some are supported in Lightroom, some are not. It just means a lot of steep learning that you have to do when you first pick up the camera, and it can get frustrating. But maybe that's what you wanted. You're a nerd, right? Okay, but now that that fair warning is out of the way, this camera can be really rewarding if you put the time into it to learn it and how to edit the files. The Sigma software really isn't too bad when you get used to it, minus the random crashing, and it's actually quite powerful. And then with a little bit of work, the images look lovely and even have this unique characteristic, I think just because coming from the place where they came from and you're trying to edit and get them where you want them to be, it just has this cool look to them. But no editing software can deal with the sensitivity issues of Foveon sensors. Maybe you've heard about this. By design, how Foveon sensors work, it just means they're limited with their ISO. Anything that's going above base ISO 100, you're gonna introduce a lot of digital noise very fast. So if you've heard that you should treat Foveon cameras like a 100 ISO film that you don't push ever, then they're kind of right. And that's best to leave it there. Also, the nerd in me loves this fact. The SD10 has a removable hot mirror filter. It's advertised like a dust protector to keep dust off the sensor, but it's the hot mirror filter, meaning that if you take it off and shoot the camera without it, which it does work by the way without it, then you're shooting in full spectrum photography. So you have a camera that can be converted back and forth from full spectrum to normal, just there built into the camera. You don't have to have it send it off to be modded somewhere, which is really cool. This camera has me torn. I'm part nerd after all, but I'm also part photographer, and I just enjoy really nice images. And you can get really nice pictures with this camera. It just takes a little bit of extra work, but sometimes I don't want to put in that work. I just want nice images, but sometimes I want the nerdy aspect. I want to tinker and play with a camera, and this camera offers that. Let me know what you think. If you're interested in old cool cameras, that's what this channel is about. So I'll get you started with a video here. I'll put on the screen to send you off on that. I'll see you over there. And until next time, happy snapping.